Shall we begin? Let's begin now.
Hey guys, it's Chris from Brick&Mortar Brewing Company, and I have been called out for the FABQ, frequently asked beer questions, that have been going around the brew tubers and beer raiders, I guess they're beer raiders, beer tasters channels. It all started by Tasting Niche, and she called a bunch of people out, and they've been calling people out from their videos. And I was called out by Brian from Short Circuited Brewers, who has an awesome channel. He is doing some great things, a lot of information there. He has a great electric brewery in his basement. I think it's his basement. But there's always some really good content on there on, building your own system and tips and tricks that they've learned along the way. And they've actually done some pretty big installations, it looks like. So yeah, check his channel out. I will post the links to all who I've mentioned in this video. I'll post them right down below, as well as the Tasting Niche, who I mentioned earlier. So there were 9 questions on the questionnaire, and let's get started. Question number 1: how did you get into beer and why? Or beer geeking, as the question was originally posted. So in 1996, my wife and I had just gotten married, and I got the entrepreneurial itch to do something on my own, basically. And I wanted to open up a coffee shop. I had really gotten into the coffee scene that in the Midwest in 96 was still nowhere near what it was in California, Seattle area. But or I should say Seattle, Washington area, as well as California. But, there was information about it. There were some small coffee roasters and things popping up around the area. And it was just something that I dove into and loved the artistic things that people were doing with, the whole coffee vibe, the shops, the carts, the interior, as well as the product that they were serving, but the interior and just the feel of a coffee shop and the food that went with it. And so that's really when I think that I discovered that I had a real passion for and interest for just artistic, crafty things, including, food and beverage and just extra flavorful things, but also things that you could basically make yourself. You could definitely do it. It wasn't out of reach. And so I put lots and lots of time in and opened a coffee shop, and that shop was open until fall of 2005. So made it almost 10 years and did a whole lot of different things. Learned a whole lot about small business. I wouldn't say it was a failure, but it never really took off the way we needed it to, and so we ended up selling it for way less than what we needed to get out of it. But all in all, I think 10 years is a good run. So all that being said, after I left that world, I jumped into different jobs. And when you have a job for 10 years and it's something that you're doing for yourself, you pretty much do everything. And so I found it really hard to market myself when I got into the job market again. And so I tried selling furniture at a very popular furniture store. Hated it. Worked at a bulk mail company right in the town that I live. Just did not like it. And I just felt like I wasn't energized by anything. And in late 2008, early 2009, I jumped into brewing with kits. And years and years ago, I had dabbled with a single Mr. Beer kit that I bought at like a resale shop. and made a really, it was, drinkable, but I just remember the alcohol rating on it was pretty high. Didn't measure it, but it was a Scotch ale, and it was nowhere near the Scotch ale that I brew now, but it was successful. It wasn't infected, and, but that was that. I never really, got fired up with it at that point. But then years later, I kind of revisited the hobby, and I guess the rest is history. It took off. I did 3 or 4 kit batches and quickly discovered the YouTube scene, and all the guys doing things, and that pretty much sold my fate, basically. I started building, the mash tun and the counterflow chiller, and then a brewing stand, and the rest is history. And now, I'm to the point where I'm really planning on going somewhere pro with this. And the great thing is, when I closed the coffee shop, my wife, was definitely not interested in hearing the words, I want to open my own whatever. It was a pretty stressful time for us, and we had to shed a lot of debt. We did it the hard way. We didn't claim bankruptcy. We leaned on some friends and family. They helped us out quite a bit, and then we just took loans out wherever we could and paid it off. But all that being said, it's come to the time where now she's actually supporting my efforts and my dream of doing this. So that kind of underlines the fact that I think it's the right path for me to go. So I guess hopefully I answered that question fully and not in a boring way. But let's move on to question number 2. Your favorite beer. I was going to answer this one and say that it's impossible for me to pick a favorite beer. There's so many things coming out. There's so many things that I've never tried, just based on, not getting to a state where it's offered, or it not being distributed here, or what have you. But as I was thinking about it, it struck me that there was one that thus far in my tasting travels and experiences, I could say is my favorite beer. And 2 summers ago, my wife and I did a road trip, and the final destination, I guess you could call it, in the road trip before heading back home was Asheville, North Carolina. And there's a company there called Wicked Weed Brewing Company. They have 2 facilities, one main brewery, and then a souring facility that they call the Funkatorium. And I drank a beer there. It's a IPA that they call Freak of Nature. And I don't know, I took one sip, and any of you guys who have felt the hop leaves and the stickiness of the plant itself, when I sipped on that beer, I actually felt the stickiness of those leaves, and almost like the slight prickiness, the like needle character. It was so awesome. I mean, I swore I was like, touching my tongue going, oh my gosh, there's got to be whole hop leaves in here. It was so awesome, and just made such a huge impression on me. It's a really great beer, and I know that they're now distributing kind of around the Carolina area and broadening a little bit, but I highly doubt it ever get to the Midwest. But if I'm ever on the East Coast over there in North Carolina, I will definitely make that a must get once again. If you could have one beer forever, what would it be? I can drink IPAs and, quote unquote, not get tired of them. But I think if it was the only beer forever, I think that it could potentially lose its, your palate would just kind of tire of it, I think. And there's one beer style that I've really grown a just huge, admiration for and appreciation of, and that's the Helles, German Helles or Munich Helles and Pilsner styles. The brilliancy of those beers, the simplicity, of the makeup of those beers, but the difficulty of pulling them off, so to speak, as a brewer, and just the clarity and cleanness when you taste it. I think I could drink. That would be my beer of choice. It could be a Helles or a Pilsner. They're kind of a tie for me, but that would be my beer of choice if there was only one. How do you drink so much and stay healthy? Well, I am healthy as far as, I'm not on any medications or don't have any ailments, so to speak. But weight for me is a constant battle. A few years ago, I dropped a huge amount of weight, just about 50 pounds. And then I was working out and putting on a lot of muscle. But muscle weighs a lot. And when you look at the scale, I wasn't just counting the clothes I was wearing. I was looking at the scale a lot and got to, kind of frustrated. And so I backed off of the weightlifting, and the weight crept back up again. And so then I got back into it. Well, I didn't lose as much weight as I was building muscle. And so I didn't feel like I was getting anywhere. And then I had a slight, the tennis elbow thing I developed, and I just got frustrated. So for the last 7 months or so, I've been just occasionally walking, but it's definitely something that I have to do. I'm not the body type that can eat anything and never gain weight. My family history is definitely on the other side, where you got to be mindful. So I definitely try to watch what I eat as best as I can. The beer thing, if I want to do this for a career, I definitely have to learn where that balance for me is. And I'm definitely going to be doing that. I'm working on that. So healthy, quote unquote. Yeah, I think I'm pretty healthy. I rarely get sick, like a cold. I have seasonal allergies, but that's my only real issue as far as health goes. So, are you an alcoholic? As I take a sip. Nope, and nope. Alcoholism is a dependency. I've experienced it in my family. My grandfather was an alcoholic and wasn't there for his kids, wasn't there for his wife. It was a family destroyer, and I know that I'm not dependent on beer. I respect the product. I respect the process. I respect the industry, and I respect the people in the industry, and that collectively makes this a passion for me, but it's not a dependency. I want to depend on beer for a career to make money, but I don't depend on consuming it to get through the day. And I have yet to wake up after overconsumption night wanting or needing to drink a beer when I get up. So yeah, not an alcoholic. I do have an addictive personality, but it's definitely not a chemical dependency. So what is your favorite ingredient? I've hemmed and hawed over it, and it's a tie. I can't single out one. It's a tie between hops and yeast. You can use base grains of all different types, and not even grains, I guess, to make a beer. But you definitely need yeast, and the hops really help. Not that you need them. You can use spruce tips and things like that, I know. But all in all, hops and yeast make beer have the character it does. So those have to be my go-tos for favorite ingredient. Do I brew? Yep, I think I've covered that already. I'm brewing 10-gallon batches right now. My target is to have an electric brewery in the basement by the fall, so that I don't have seasons to worry about. Living in Wisconsin, winter sucks for brewing when the hose spigot freezes up. So Plus, it's kind of, just not comfortable to stand out there and brew. So even in the garage, it's a detached garage, so I don't have the luxury of the house heating, part of it. So, what's the next one? First beer. My dad was a Blatz drinker, and so I'm sure that I tasted a Blatz along the way. I was a pretty decent kid, so to speak, as far as drinking went in high school. I did attend a graduation party when I was a sophomore, but I don't recall the beer they were drinking. It was probably a Miller High Life or something of that sort. But my first purchased beer when I turned 21 was a Killian's Red. So, what's next? Who do you look up to in the beer world? Well, first I want to start by saying that the Brewing TV original series with Jake Keeler and Chip Walton and Michael Dawson, that was addictive for me. I never tired of watching those episodes, learning, just soaking up as much info as they could dish out. I actually had the opportunity to meet Chip Walton at a Great Taste in the Midwest a few years ago, and that was just really cool, to just sit down and talk to him for a bit. So those three guys, big kudos to them. Don Osborne, man, he didn't start brewing much before I did, but gosh, does he have the information. And for a new, when I was just getting my feet planted in this hobby, it was just awesome to watch his, batch sparging over and over and over, and, just how he did things, and just to really take note and repeat what he did, in my process. On the professional side, Jim and Jason Abel from Two Brothers Brewing in Warrenville, Illinois, unbelievable. The minute I was introduced to that brewery, and then heard their story, they've been around 20 years, and kudos to them. And what I really admire about what they do, I'm sure that the brewery is expanding, but that's not what you hear about. They have their Warrenville location, and then in Aurora they have a facility called the Roundhouse, but it's not necessarily a additional brewery. It's a restaurant / tap room. And then their newest venture is really cool. It's in Naperville, and I believe it's a 3-level structure, and they started roasting coffee as well as brewing beer. And so on the lower floor of the restaurant, this facility that they have, you walk in and it's a coffee shop, bakery, and then as you're making your way to the back, in between there's like an area, I'll call it a countertop. It's not really a bar, but they have taps of their beers and then some wines. And then you make your way to the back, and there's like a deli back there where they're doing their own meat curing and everything. Then on the middle floor, there's a pretty awesome restaurant that was closed when we went, but they're supposedly supposed to have some pretty awesome stuff. And the prime rib that was aging in the wall, there's like a salt block room behind the deli that you can see on the main floor. And if that's any indication of what they're doing for the upstairs restaurant, I need to go and experience that. And then on the top floor, I guess it's like a high-end cocktail / beer lounge. So it's just awesome that they're not just, expanding as far as how much beer they can pump out, but they're taking their passions and their commitment to quality and just awesome things and spreading that out across the gamut of food and beverage. So 2 awesome guys. On top of that, Adam Avery, his dad was retiring and looking to open a small business, and he's like, Dad, let's open a brewery. And lo and behold, look at Avery Brewing. I had the opportunity to go to Boulder a few years ago before they built their new enormous facility, and they were basically in this like warehouse district. And I'll tell you, they had the most passionate employees. They were fired up to be there. Everybody was welcome. You know, it was just, it made you almost want to apply for a job. They were so passionate. And it just added to the fire, you know, for me to build this into something bigger. So, and last but not least, if that wasn't enough people, the homebrewers who have gone pro or are planning to go pro, admiration galore for them. It's not an easy step to take, and it's awesome to see so many doing it. So cheers to those guys. And I think that's it for the 9 questions. Holy cow, 20 minutes. Jeez. Sorry if I rambled, put you to sleep. Wake up. I see you out there. Wake up. So I'm supposed to call out 5 people. Pardon me if these people have already been called out. I thought that of the channels that I subscribe to, I've tried to watch each of these now to know if any of the guys I want to call out have been called out. But if you have been called out, please call someone out for me. That'd be great. Tyler Everson from Everdy Home Brewing. I call you out. I want to hear your story, man. A fellow Wisconsinite. Got to meet him 2 weeks ago. And we're definitely going to meet up at NHC. Looking forward to that. Jake Wolstedt of Super Brewers. I need to hear your story too, brother. I mentioned him as to someone I look up to in the beer world. Don Osborne. If you're watching, I know you subscribed. It'd be awesome to hear your journey. I know that Nate Pico has been called out, but Brad, I know you got a great story to tell. So, Elder P, let's hear it. And Steve, the Canadian Sasquatch, he's been commenting on quite a few of my videos. So, if you haven't been called out, I challenge you to answer these 9 questions. So, I guess that's it, guys. This was fun. I hope, like I said, I hope I didn't bore you. I guess I'll see you next time. Cheers, everybody.